Alright guys, this is Chatterbox Reviews, coming to you guys with another tier list video. This one's going to be ranking all of the character weapons from The Walking Dead. Alright, so I thought it'd be fun to do another Walking Dead tier list video here on the channel. I've done a few so far, right? So I've done, I think, all the seasons of the show and the spin-offs and like all the universe there. Villains, character deaths, season finales I think I did. What are some of the other ones? Communities, locations, right? So I've done quite a few so far. You know, there's definitely more to do, and I thought this was kind of a fun idea. When I actually looked into this, I haven't really found any, maybe like one or two, you know, other kind of channels or people that have done this type of tier list. So I thought it'd be a fun idea, kind of a new idea. I did have to go ahead and create my own tier list for this one. So hopefully, you know, if you want to go try it yourself, I'll put the link in the description, and hopefully, you know, it gives some more opportunities for people to kind of rank, you know, some of these, you know, weapons and that, and explore this topic. So anyways, I did have this idea in mind, and then it was kind of furthered along. I think it was a couple people in the comments in the last little bit on the channel did go ahead and suggest this as well. So I want to give credit to a couple of you who kind of chimed in and gave me the idea as well. So yeah, so I thought this would be a good one. I am going to specifically stick to like character weapons. I want to emphasize that part of it because obviously, I mean, we'd be here for hours if I were to rank, you know, every single weapon, you know, from the show that's used at some point. But I do want to stick to kind of signature weapons for the character. Even some of these characters, though, are kind of minor characters, but maybe the weapon that they have is really cool or really unique, and so I wanted to throw it on here. So I try to, and the other thing is that, like, so many characters use guns, and so I try not to have, okay, this character uses a rifle, this character uses the same rifle. I try to just pick the more important one, or, you know, maybe the more important character, and I went with that. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please like and consider subscribing to the channel as well. Would really appreciate that. But without any further ado, let's get into the tier list. Alright, so here we are on the tier list, and like I said, I did make this myself, so definitely check out the description for the link if you want to rank, you know, on your own time, or maybe as we go along here as you're watching, you know, definitely do that if you're interested. So just stuck with the default tiers for this one, just S, A, B, C, D. We only have 20 character weapons or, you know, elements here that we're ranking, and so I thought, you know, 5 tiers is probably enough. And just to clarify, I'm going to rank these basically, I want to say like 2 kind of criteria that I'm going to put into this. Is one being kind of the effectiveness of the weapon, right? Is, you know, how effective is it actually in the apocalypse, you know, versus some of these other weapons on this list, right? Because some are just more effective than others. And then, obviously, the other side of it is just, you know, the iconicness, nature, you know, how important it is. Obviously, the character who wields the weapon will play a big part in that, right? Of how, if it's a main important character that's in the whole show, well, then, yeah, they're probably going to be higher up on the list. And obviously, the weapon that they use for the whole show, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a little higher. So there's 2 different kind of criteria I'm going at with this list, and that's how I'm going to rank this. So, and also let me know if I missed any here. I did do some, you know, research into this. I did spend some time looking at this and trying to get this list of all these weapons together. I know I left some out, but yeah, let me know if there's any major ones that I've missed. And you know, definitely I'll you know, maybe rank them, you know, according to the tiers here that I missed. So anyways, with all that being said, let's get to the first one then, and it is going to be Aaron's mace hand. So this is a cool one. Obviously, you know, Aaron gets kind of Rick's arc from the comics that we, you know, miss, obviously, with Rick having it because he left the show. And so I want to say it's around season 9 time, right, where Aaron loses his hand. And obviously, you know, losing his hand is kind of the start or kind of the main piece of him adopting Rick's arc. Obviously, just the way he looks later in the later seasons too is also the kind of, you know, taking that look of Rick from the comics too, with the beard and that kind of, you know, short hair here as well. he actually kind of looks more like Comic Rick than Andrew Lincoln did in a lot of the seasons of the show. So, anyways, with that being said, he loses his hand in I think season 9 time, and he has a few different things that he puts on his hand, but this one is the coolest, and this is the one I'll be ranking. Is this mace hand, and so it's kind of this ball with all these spikes on it, and he just kind of wears it on where his hand would be, and it's just really effective. So in terms of that criteria, I think it's a great weapon, one of the most effective, I would say. I mean, what a huge advantage just it is in general to have to not have a hand, right? That you're worried about getting bitten. So you can literally just sacrifice that hand, that arm, anytime you want, to push back walkers or to even let a walker bite and distract him or something like that. It's just such a useful thing, to be missing a hand there. Whereas, again, someone with 2 hands, they can't be putting their hand close to the, mouth of or the teeth of the walkers and all this stuff. And the way that the spikes are on there, it's just great. And will it ever break? I don't think so, right? Like some of these other weapons, they might break, or maybe like a gun, it might jam or something. This is never going to break. I mean, maybe some of the spikes fall off or something, but even then, it's still useful, right? As just something that you could punch, right? Some of the walkers. So in that way, I think it's one of the most effective weapons, honestly. I think it's really cool. Now, to be fair, it isn't the first, weapon like this that's used for a missing hand. Of course, we'll get to it later, but Merle, right, it was kind of the first one. So I do want to take, a point or two off of it just because it's not the most unique thing. We had seen it before in the show. And it only is, the last 2.5 seasons of the show. And it isn't, I mean, I guess it's kind of Aaron's weapon, his signature weapon, but at times he kind of goes away from it. He also has just kind of like the metal hand that he puts on there. So I can't put this too high. Effectiveness level, we're in that S or A tier, but in terms of kind of the importance of it, I wouldn't put it as high. So I'm thinking probably, top of B tier for this one. It's one of the cooler ones as well, for sure. But yeah, I think ultimately we have to put it in B tier. Again, depending on the 2 criteria that I'm ranking it on, I think we'll have to put it there. All right, so then next is Beta and his knives, right? So again, this picture is a little hard to see. I apologize for that. It was one of the best pictures I could find, but anyways, so this is, I think, actually the scene from the episode Choke Point with him and Daryl. It's that scene where they fight, and then, Beta ends up falling down the elevator shaft, and then we see at the end of the episode that he actually wakes up, and we're all thinking, like, how the hell did he survive falling all those floors down to this elevator when he falls on top of the elevator? So anyways, a really cool scene, and yeah, Beta's knives are really cool, right? Really cool. And it actually, as I'm remembering a little bit, it does seem like Daryl actually kind of employs the 2 knives thing, and he kind of carries the knives like Beta does in the later seasons. And of course, that is the way that Beta dies, as he gets the knives, shoved through his eyes, through his eye sockets by Daryl. So very fitting, and I think this is pretty iconic, right? This is just kind of Beta's way. I don't even remember him ever having a gun. Of course, none of the Whisperers really did, except for Alpha, maybe, which you won't see Alpha's shotgun on here, unfortunately, so maybe that's one I missed. But anyways, the way of life for the Whisperers was knives, right? That's just the way that they fought. Those are the weapons that they used, and Beta's really the most iconic for that with the 2 knives. So usefulness, yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy, right? Like, to have 2 to double wield, and these are big knives too. These are not just, small, like, they're almost like machete-like, the length of them. And again, you can't see it as well in this picture, but, they're long knives. And so to double wield them is pretty effective, I would say. You can't just dodge the one blade because he's coming in with the next one. And that's what made that fight scene so crazy with him and Daryl because of that. So yeah, effectiveness, I would say really, really effective. Again, could the blade get stuck in a walker or somebody, or a human, and then you lose a knife? Stuff like that, right? You got to take that into account. And then, yeah, in terms of the iconicness, yeah, Beta's around for about a season and a half with the Whisper arc. He's not around for the whole show. He is, a really big villain, though, in the course of the series. So yeah, I'm thinking probably in the B tier for Beta. Maybe B for Beta is fitting, but yeah, I mean, he's a big villain. The knives are really sick, but it's not. Yeah, it's not as important. And he doesn't have... The other thing, too, is, he doesn't have as many kills with them, and that's something I'm going to talk about with some of the most iconic weapons, is you remember, specific kills that are associated with those weapons. And I just don't really recall as many with Beta. So, yeah, we're going to put it in B tier. I think we're going to put it above Aaron, though. I think we're going to put above Aaron's mace hand. We'll put it at the top of B for now. But as always, I might move these around as we go. Maybe I get one and I realize, you know what, maybe that's too low, and I put it higher. So anyways, next up then is Dale and his hunting rifle here. I think this actually is a pretty good picture. I think that's from Judge, Jury, Executioner, right? The episode where he dies and he gets shot and then eaten alive by the walkers. Pretty insane stuff there. And to me, a little too early for his death. Really love Dale in the show. So anyways, him and his hunting rifle, iconic for the first couple seasons of the show. Him sitting on the top of the RV with that rifle. Even Andrea, I think, carries the rifle a lot. It's kind of used by whoever's the lookout, right, for the group in those first couple seasons when they have the RV. Does he have, many kills with it or memorable moments? Not particularly, or not that I can remember off the top of my head right now. But it is just iconic because you always see it in those first couple, seasons of the show. He's either he's carrying it or Andrea or somebody is carrying it, in the group. And so to me, that's pretty iconic. And it is just a staple of Dale. He really doesn't use anything else in those first couple seasons that he's around. It really is just that hunting rifle that he uses. So yeah, can I put it in A tier? Does that seem too high? Maybe it doesn't have, it's not as memorable. And then, of course, the effectiveness of it. Yeah, I mean, it's a hunting rifle. It is good for long distances as well compared to some other, pistols and that. But again, it's ammunition. If you don't have any, then what do you do? The gun jams or something like that. So it's not as effective as, knives or something like that, or, handheld weapon. But it's a rifle, so it's pretty effective. So, yeah, it is pretty iconic. You know what, though? I might go and see, actually. It's not really a part of any big kills or moments, but it is, iconic for those first. And Dale isn't as big of a character in the grand scheme of things. Of course, for the 2 seasons that he's around, he's a big character, but, for the entire series, I think that's fair. So we'll put it in C for now with Dale and his rifle. Next up, yeah, I mean, obviously S. This might be top of S even. Daryl is in the entire show, right from the first season till the last episode, the finale of the series, and it is his crossbow, right? I mean, can you even think of anything more iconic than that? I really do think it is going to be the top of S. Obviously, we'll get to some other ones here that are close to it. But yeah, I mean, even people that may not even watch the show or have seen an episode of it, but they've seen kind of the marketing or they've, seen a clip or something here and there, they would associate, Daryl Dixon and his crossbow. To me, that's just, a classic thing, maybe like Thor and his hammer, on that level to me. So, yeah, I mean, it's just iconic. There's not much more to say. In terms of the effectiveness of it, it's, I would say, even more effective than a gun, probably, right? In terms of the apocalypse, at least, where you can run out of ammunition in this case, I guess you could run out of arrows, but I mean, it'd be a lot easier to manufacture arrows than it would be bullets, right? Well, Eugene's factory, and he makes bullets in that case, but it would be easier, and it would take a lot longer probably to run out of arrows, especially the way that he retrieves them, right, from the walkers most of the time. And yeah, I just think it's a better weapon than a gun, and we just see that in a lot of instances. Even if you're not trying to make noise, right, with the sound of a gun going off, Daryl can silently kill anything, right, with his crossbow, and we see that many times in the show. So yeah, one of the more effective weapons for sure, and obviously iconic, definitely. All right, so next then, and it's a small little picture, again, apologize, but it is Elijah from the later seasons of the show, and these are commas. Comma, I guess, is the weapon, but he has two of them, so it's commas that he's using, and it's kind of a martial arts weapon. It almost looks like a sickle, kind of, but I think it is different. It is called a comma. So anyways, I thought these were just really cool, and again, yeah, Elijah's not that big of a character in the show in the grand scheme of things, but like I said off the top, if the weapon is really unique, I do still want to include it here. And I mean, this is really unique, right? Like, yes, at the end of the day, it is kind of like a blade. It is kind of like a knife. It's kind of a handheld weapon like that. But it's really cool, like when it first came in and he was wearing the mask like he is in this picture, it was kind of that mysterious. It's like, what is he even holding? Like what is he using to kill these walkers? And so it did kind of bring a little bit of that uniqueness to the surface, I think, at the time that he came in. Now, I can't remember, if he uses it the entire time in the show. I don't remember, in season 11, him having the same commas, that he uses. So I'm not sure. Maybe I'm misremembering on that. Maybe he still does. But it was a very signature weapon to him. I mean, no one else in the show used it, at least to my knowledge, at any time. It was literally just him, and I thought it was really cool and kind of inventive. So. Yeah, I mean, I think you could throw them, right? And so in terms of the effectiveness, that would be pretty effective. Obviously, just holding in your hand and using it, swinging it at walkers would have been pretty effective. Depends on if the blades are sharp enough, right, for humans, if you were fighting a human and wanted to kill them. So I can't remember, there were some memorable moments, that he uses them, like I said, when he had the mask on and we were wondering who it was. But no major characters, were killed by him using them, I don't think. So yeah, I think probably just in the C tier. Dale and his hunting rifle, I don't know that I can put it above that. That does seem really iconic and, really kind of unique, cool weapon. But Elijah's not that big of a character. So I think we'll go bottom of C there. I can't put it in D tier, definitely not. But yeah, I think we'll go bottom of C there for his weapon there for Elijah. All right. So next then is the governor and his rifle, and I forget the exact name of this of the rifle. I don't think it's an AR-15. I think it's something else actually. I'm not that good with the names, but anyways, it is this rifle that he carries here in this picture, and I think it's actually a pretty good picture. This one's from Welcome to the Tombs, the season 3 finale, and one of the most memorable things about this weapon and the way it's used is the way that he guns down all of his own people at the end of the season 3 finale who are walking away from him and saying, you're crazy, man, right? Like they're giving up on him and his whole, mission to take the prison from Rick and get back at them. And he literally just uses the rifle to gun them all down in the back. So an insane scene, really memorable scene over the course of the show, and especially for the governor as a character, as a villain. So really memorable there, and there's some good pictures of him with it. I think some memorable scenes with him, and I believe he has the same gun in Too Far Gone. I might be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure he's carrying the same gun in that scene when he's at the tank and he's got Herschel and Michonne on their knees right before he takes Michonne's katana and obviously beheads Herschel. So yeah, I mean the governor, an iconic character. He also does have a Beretta, I believe, that he uses at times. So, maybe this isn't his, only signature weapon, but to me, probably the most memorable. So obviously, yeah, I mean, like many of these other guns, very useful, very effective. Although, again, you lose, you run out of ammo. Nothing, you got nothing, it jams or something like that. Obviously a rifle, can probably fire a lot more rounds, than a pistol or something like that. And so maybe it's more effective in that way. So anyways, I think I gotta go, probably in the B tier here with this one, because again, such a memorable scene with the weapon being used. So that automatically, I think, goes in B tier. Does it go, Beta with his knives, I think is better than that. I might put it over Aaron's mace hand, though, just because the governor is, a major villain in the show, probably, the second biggest villain of the show. And for him to have that signature weapon, I think is pretty important. So we'll put him there in B tier. All right, so next then is one of the funnier ones here on the list. I wanted to have some fun with this one. So it is Herschel's shotgun, specifically the shotgun that had infinite ammo. He had infinite rounds to use in the shotgun here in the season 2 finale, Beside the Dying Fire. So just an iconic moment, maybe for all the wrong reasons for fans of the show. If you remember, it's just a great scene, in the finale where, we just see Herschel. And it's kind of that, cliche of like the old farmer defending his land, and he's just firing off the shotgun and gunning down all these walkers. But of course, he fires something like 22 bullets or something, or 22 rounds without reloading once. So a really funny sequence, of course. But yeah, it is kind of iconic. It is kind of the weapon associated with Herschel, is his shotgun, this 12 gauge. And I don't think many other people, again, Alpha has a shotgun. It's like a sawed-off shotgun. But I'm not sure that anyone has, specifically the same 12 gauge shotgun that Herschel uses. So I guess it's kind of unique, but I don't know. I think I got to put this in, maybe the D tier, to be honest, just because of the fact, that it's the unlimited ammo. It's kind of a joke, of the scene where it's used, of course. I guess, it is memorable, but again, made for the wrong reasons. So yeah, I'm going to put it in D. It is just kind of a basic weapon as well, a shotgun, one of the more basic, guns that you could have. And effectiveness, well, I mean, if you have infinite ammo, it's the most effective in the show, but obviously, it wouldn't typically be like that. So I'm going to put that in D tier. Maybe I'm just being too harsh, and maybe I should, put it higher, but anyways, kind of a joke anyways to put it on here, and so we'll put it in D tier for now. But a really funny moment in the show. All right, so next then is Jerry's battle axe. And again, the picture doesn't quite do it justice. It's a little small here. But he is, it's just him holding the big axe there. So this was one of the cooler, weapons of the later seasons of the show. Again, it's one of those handheld weapons. And it just looks so cool because Jerry is such a big guy, right? Tall and wide, we'll say. He's a big guy. And this axe was huge, right? Like, he's one of the only guys in the show that could really carry this weapon and really rock it and, be even able to swing it, right? A lot of the other characters wouldn't have been able to do that. And so it was just very fitting for his character, to have this axe, and be able to swing it around and stuff. So, yeah, I mean, is it the most memorable? I don't know, right? Like, I can't remember specific moments where he uses it. I feel like he just used it against walkers, here and there. I think this scene I think it's that one episode one scene in the episode from season 8 where it's, Ezekiel and him, and I think there's maybe Carol or something where they're getting attacked at the kingdom. And they have to, they're fighting the saviors. And so that's a big episode where it's used. But anyways, nothing too big comes to mind with it. No, crazy memorable scenes. So, yeah, I mean, we'll have to put it in one of the bottom tiers here, I think. In terms of usefulness, yeah, I mean, it's crazy, especially when you have a man behind it with his strength and his size, being able to swing that. I mean, it's unstoppable, really, right? Unless you're going to somehow block it, which it's huge and weighs a lot, right? So it would at least knock you down if you were to block it. And if you don't, well, you're done, right? You're done. So pretty effective for sure. And obviously, doesn't take bullets. It just takes a lot of strength. And it could break though as well if you hit it hard enough. So maybe that's part of it. But anyways, so in terms of the memorable stuff, though, and the importance, not up there as much. So I think it's right in the range of kind of Elijah, I think, with his commas there. I think it's right in the range of that. And I think that one's actually a little more unique than this one. So we're going to stick, I think, Jerry below him in C. And now that I'm looking at this, I do think we should move Dale's hunting rifle up, just of how iconic it is. So I think we'll move that. Yeah, I think we'll move it at the bottom of B tier for now. I think we'll put it below Aaron's mace hand. All right. So next then is another kind of funny one to me at least, and that is the slingshot. So this is used by both Connie and Kelly. I thought this was actually a really fitting picture because it has both of them as Connie, right, is using the actual slingshot here. And so both of them use it. So it's actually one of the only ones on this list where it's wielded by two different people, but it's, kind of a signature weapon to them as a group, and they're sisters anyways, right? So there you go. So this one to me, I mean, if you talk about effectiveness, I don't know. I always thought this was one of the weirdest things in the show, was that we were supposed to believe somehow that this slingshot, was able to take down walkers. I think they even use it on some humans as well, maybe the Whisperers at one point. I don't know. To me, it just seems a little ridiculous. I get it. There'd be a lot of force on it for sure, but, I don't know, like maybe does it daze a walker, for a few seconds, or, really kind of daze a human, make them kind of step back a little bit, or maybe even knock them down. But they could get back up and fight again, I don't know. I just thought this was a little unrealistic how much force and how much effectiveness it had in the show. It just doesn't seem like that would happen. It also is something where, in close quarters, it's not like a knife where you can just, get to it, or even Daryl with his crossbow, how good he is with it. He can kind of turn it around and fire it really quick. Same with the gun, obviously, too. But in this case, you have to get it up, right, and then pull it back with all your force and then let it go. It just doesn't, it doesn't seem as effective as a lot of these other ones. So I'm going to have to put this in a lower D tier. I think it's probably at the bottom. Again, in terms of the importance of it, it is kind of, it's memorable in terms of, being maybe for the wrong reasons. Again, like Herschel's shotgun, rather. It is attached to those characters for sure, but yeah, I mean, nothing memorable about it in terms of, scenes or something like that. So, I'm going to put it at the bottom of D, because based on my criteria, it's probably the worst, character weapon on this list. All right. So next then is another cool one, I think one of the cooler ones, and I actually had to look into this because I did not realize this when I was first thinking of putting this on this list. It is Luke, and apparently it's a gear mace. So essentially, I guess, it's a bike gear, right? And again, maybe this is like crazy, maybe this was common knowledge, not to me apparently, but it's a bike gear that I guess he's, taken off of I'm not sure if it's a motorcycle or a bicycle, I think maybe a bicycle, and so he takes this gear and he's now put a handle on it, and this is the weapon that he uses. So really cool, and I when I saw it on the show, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, I wonder what that is. But apparently that's what it is. Maybe I guess that could be wrong, but that's what I found when I looked into it. So anyways, Luke and his gear mace. The main reason I put this on here is just because it's really unique, and I don't think, any other character had anything like this in terms of a weapon. Now, usefulness, I don't know, it always did seem a little kind of flimsy to me, to have something like that thin of a bike gear on this handle. Again, if you're swinging that at something really hard, or even a human, I don't know, it just, to me, it kind of, gave off that vibe of, oh, like, that thing could break pretty easily. You know, and maybe I'm wrong, you know, but anyways, so that to me, the effectiveness is kind of a little off there. And yeah, you know, nothing really that memorable in terms of this weapon in the show. You know, definitely something that, you know, is associated strongly with Luke, but I think really only in like the last season of the show that he sported this and used it. So yeah, it's right in this range with, you know, Elijah, Jerry. It is a really cool weapon, but again, the effectiveness is maybe not there as much. So I'm going to put this actually in the bottom of C. I think Jerry's battle axe is more effective. I think Elijah's commas is more effective. You know, yeah. So I think I'm going to put it there in C tier. All right, so next then is one that I really, you know, did want to include here because I've, you know, thought of it, and I'm like, Maggie, she doesn't have a weapon, you know, she doesn't have something to be on this list with, and I thought that was really weird, and so I'm like, oh yeah, she had the bow and arrow, you know, in the later seasons of the show, basically after she returns, you know, in the show, and when did she return? I want to say it was like the back half of episodes in season 10. You know, the additional 6 episodes, I think, is when we see her again. And right away, right when she comes back, she does have this bow and arrow, and she does use it, I think, I want to say, throughout the rest of the show, you know, throughout, you know, till the end of season 11 there. And I believe she's using it in Dead City as well, or at least, you know, we see her with the bow at times in Dead City. So definitely, you know, not a part of her character throughout the entire series, but, you know, in that basically the last season and a half-ish of the show, she has it, and it's very, you know, a signature weapon for sure. You know, she is the only one that really uses a bow and arrow. Of course, Daryl's is a crossbow, but hers is literally a classic bow and arrow. So, yeah, not as effective, I would say, as the crossbow. Of course, again, this is kind of similar to the slingshot, actually. Again, close hand-to-hand, or even something where you get maybe a split second. Yeah, you know, you got to raise it, you know, crank it back, and let it go. Whereas, again, Daryl's crossbow, you pull the trigger, you know, again, knives, guns, right? So it is a little less effective in that way, although she was a really good shooter, really sharp shooter, and could, you know, nail a lot of, you know, targets from distance with the bow and arrow, and so that's pretty effective. Is there any memorable scenes, you know, with it? I could think of a few, right? You know, I could think of a few, especially I think she bows down, you know, I want to say one of those guys in the forest, who I believe is with the Reapers. We learn later, right? He like kind of blows himself up when they're in the forest together, and I think she bows him down. Something like that comes to mind, but yeah, nothing crazy to me in terms of that. So Maggie's a really big character in the show, obviously one of the most important, and I think this is a pretty signature weapon for her later in the show. So I'm going to put her in B tier. I think it's just above, you know, C tier for me. She's just such an iconic character. And yeah, I mean, Dale and his hunting rifle, I may actually put that above it. So I might put Maggie in the bottom of B tier for now. All right, so next then is Merle and his blade hand. I think this is going to be our first entry in A tier. I mean, this is just such an iconic, you know, thing. Again, it's only in season 3, I think, that we see this, but it was just such a unique thing, right? He loses his hand in season 1 in the early episodes there, and when he returns with this blade hand, you know, on his arm, and it just looks so cool, right? It just looks so cool. Again, so effective. It's the same thing I said for Aaron, right? You have this free arm, right, that you can give walkers, you know, sacrifice or kind of, you know, distract them with. And even in this case, I think it might even be more effective than Aaron's because you have this long blade on it where you can slice the walkers, you know, take care of them really easily. Whereas Aaron, you have to get really close to them. Whereas, you know, Merle can kind of have some distance and just stab them. So yeah, just a really unique weapon to me. Merle, obviously, technically he's really not around that much in the grand scheme of the show, but such an important character for the limited time that he is in it. So yeah, I think he's got to be an A tier. Again, a very effective weapon and really unique for the time in the show, and an important character. And just again, like you think of Daryl Crossbow. We'll get to some other ones, Michonne and Katana next. Like, Merle and his blade hand. Like, that's just something that you think of right away when you think of Merle. So, he's going to be an A tier with that one. All right, so just like I said, Michonne and her katana, yeah, obviously an S tier. That's iconic. To me, I think there's like 3 or 4 weapons that are going to be an S tier that are just absolutely iconic for the show. This is obviously one of them. Maybe the second best, too, I might say. But anyways, I mean, yeah, Michonne, Katana, you just think of those two. In terms of the effectiveness, I mean, man, especially when you have someone like Michonne wielding it, who is so talented, so skilled with the blade. I mean, it's kind of unstoppable, really, right? Like, and the way that she can slice, like, multiple walkers at a time, really versatile, swinging it around. Can be, she used it to kill multiple humans, including the governor, Ron, right? Very similar ways where she kind of stabs them through the back with it. And I think there's some other, humans as well. I think she uses it on the kids, too, in that one crazy season 10 episode. Scars, I think it's called. Or is that season 9? Maybe it's season 9. But anyways, yeah, insane, obviously iconic, one of the craziest weapons, used on the show for sure, and, obviously really important for Michonne as a character, who is obviously, probably a top 5 character in the show all time. All right, so we have another important one up next, and it is Morgan and his staff. So, again, you talk about, like Michonne with her blade, or like Daryl with the crossbow. He got so good with this staff. I mean, he's so skilled, so talented, and so fast with it, right? So quick. And that to me is one of the most important, parts of a weapon like the staff, where it isn't, like a blade and something where it can just, immediately, kill somebody just like that, or slice somebody's, behead somebody like a walker. It is something that you kind of have to stab into, pull out, or hit somebody over the head with really quick. And so that's just really important. And so the way he uses it is pretty effective. Now, again, like I just said, is it as effective as a sword or as a crossbow or, even a gun? I mean, again, you can run out of ammunition. It can jam, like I've said many times. But it's like an immediate kill shot, right? Whereas the staff, I never got that impression. And I will be honest, at times, I don't know, I do feel like they kind of maybe over-exaggerated, the effectiveness of the staff, with the way that, he could just swing it once at somebody, hit them in the head, and completely knock them out unconscious. Where, I don't know, maybe that is realistic. Again, maybe the speed and the strength at which he swung it would have that effect. But yeah, maybe this is a hot take, but I don't think I'm going to put it in S tier just because of that. It's just the effectiveness of it doesn't seem, as good as, definitely not as good as these two here for these characters. So yeah, but obviously so integral to Morgan, rather, as a character in the show. He's one of the most important characters, right there from the pilot episode that he's in the show, right until the end of season 8 there. So yeah, I think it's, top of A for sure. In terms of the weapon. It's also used by Henry, I think, as well. That's the way that he kills Gavin. So that's an important part of it. And yeah, definitely a really great weapon, but I don't think I can put it in S tier with those other ones. All right. So next then we have a few of Rick's weapons. I guess they're all in a row here, so it is what it is. But first of all, it is Rick's hatchet. So this is an important one, though I'm only going to put, I think, one of these Rick weapons in the S tier, and you can probably guess which one that is. It's not going to be the hatchet, I don't think. This one, it is pretty iconic, right? I want to say it's like season 5 to like season 8 range that he uses the hatchet, or at least that it plays a big part in the show. He kind of carries it on his belt. I remember a lot of scenes, where he has it on his belt like that. And then, of course, to me, this is one of the most memorable moments with the hatchet. It is where Negan, just about makes him chop Carl's arm off in the Season 7 premiere episode to get him to fall in line. So that's the picture I used here with the hatchet. And then another really memorable scene with the hatchet to me is the scene in No Way Out, right? When Carl just gets shot and he's in the room with Denise and all the walkers are swarming outside the house. They've taken over Alexandria. And he goes out, he opens the door, right? You see him open the doorknob, and he's carrying the hatchet in his hand. And then he goes out, to the front deck, right, of the house, kind of jumps into the crowd of walkers and swings that the hatchet. And it's just really iconic. So, I don't know, maybe I'm talking myself into S tier here for Rick, but I don't know. I feel like he has... another one that's coming up is kind of more of his signature weapon. This one kind of comes in play later in the show, so I may have to put this at the top of A tier. We'll leave it at S for now, but it is really iconic. I don't know. I mean, it is a really important one, but yeah, I think he has a more important weapon as the show goes on, or really from the beginning. So we'll put it in the top of A for now. All right, so next then is another Rick one. It is Rick's red machete. Now, if you were to rank this weapon just in terms of the overall Walking Dead universe, the world of the Walking Dead and all that stuff, I think this would be like top of S tier almost, right? Like it was used in the web series that they had, and they had this whole lore where, other people had it before Rick and after Rick. It got lost, and so they kind of had this whole thing behind the scenes of this red machete and where it went, and it being wielded by so many different people for so many important events and stuff like this. So in that way, fair enough, but I'm just ranking on the original series, obviously. And I mean, in terms of memorability, yeah, I mean, this is, one of the most memorable scenes to me of like the whole series really is Gareth's death, right? He says, "I already made you a promise," and he swings that red machete, basically just straight down on Gareth's head, and just, massacres him and the other, members of the Terminus group or the cannibals there inside the church. What an insane scene. One of my favorite scenes of the show, honestly. Just insane. And obviously the weapon plays a massive role in that. Now, the weapon, I don't think he actually holds or kind of wields the red machete for that long in the show, at least from my memory. Again, they made that web series where it kind of made it after Rick had it. So he doesn't have it for the entire series, obviously, kind of just a short time. But that is one of the more memorable scenes of the show. In terms of, effectiveness, yeah, it's right up there, right? It's a long blade. You have distance away that you can use it. Really effective. And he used it pretty well for Gareth in this scene as well. So, yeah, I'm going to put it in A tier, I think. I can't put it any lower than that for sure. But you know what? I think I'm going to put it below Morgan and his staff. Again, because Rick doesn't have it for that long in the show, I think it goes down a little bit in that A tier. All right, so next, yeah, and obviously another iconic one there. And I think I am going to keep it like this, actually. I know, Rick is our main character. He's, the biggest character in the show. But the fact that he has the hatchet, the red machete, I think there's another one, too, that I left off the list here. He has other weapons throughout the show, whereas Michonne really only has that katana. Daryl only really has the crossbow. I guess he has knives later in the show, right? But those are mainly their weapons. This one, Rick's revolver, right? The Colt Python, he uses it for a lot of the show, but he also uses other weapons. So that's the reason why it's going to be at the bottom of S tier here. However, yeah, obviously an iconic weapon in terms of the effectiveness, like I said, like many of these other guns, very effective, except in situations, obviously, where you want to be quiet, and if you run out of ammo and stuff like that. But very effective. He's obviously a really great shooter, being a cop before the apocalypse. He's really great, and it's just so iconic. So many scenes of it, are just really, really memorable. The scene that comes to mind first is when he guns down the cop, where he says "shut up" and he shoots the cop. I think that's in season 5. Many memorable scenes in the first couple seasons of the show with the revolver. I think it's also the revolver that he's using, in the pilot episode, right? When he gets shot in the shoulder there. So yeah, I mean, it just sticks with him, I think, pretty much for the whole show, right? He even uses it in his final episode, in What Comes After, right? When he's shooting, I kind of think, the dynamite, right? He's trying to ignite the bridge. And I believe that is the same Colt Python that he uses in that episode. So yeah, I mean, he's got it from the pilot until the end. I mean, such an iconic weapon for him, and just for the show in general. Really crazy. So yeah, definitely an S tier there. Next up, then, our second last one is going to be Shane and his Glock. So I thought this one was good. I also know that he does carry a shotgun in the first season of the show, I think. But the Glock, to me, was more memorable for him in terms of his signature weapon. It's mainly, I want to say, in season 2. I think we see it in season 1 a little bit. He's kind of got it on his waistband, right? But season 2, I mean, it plays a huge role, right? This scene in pretty much Dead Already, as Sophia walks out of the barn, I'm pretty positive that this is, him as he shoots. Is it Sophia that he shoots, or is it one of the other walkers maybe? But anyways, I can't remember completely, but he does use it to shoot the walkers. He says, "Enough of this," or something along those lines. Enough of this already or something, and just goes and steps in and shoots the walkers. So that's a crazy scene. I think he uses it in 18 Miles Out against Rick as well. He has the Glock, and what other scenes does he have it in? He also has it with Randall as well. When he's taking Randall out to the woods, he uses it, and holds it against Randall, and of course, he has it in Better Angels in that confrontation with Rick. That's the gun he's holding, is that Glock. So really, really memorable. Again, Shane's only in the first 2 seasons, and he only uses it in that time, but a really memorable character, one of the most important in the series, and this to me is a real signature weapon for him. So I think I'm going to put it in the A tier here. Again, memorable scenes with it, effectiveness, like I said, with all the other guns, pretty much the same. So where would I put it here? It's got to be somewhere in here. It's probably over Merle and his blade hand, I want to say. Rick and the red machete, maybe it would be, it is a Glock too, right? It's not the most unique thing ever. So maybe I might put it at the bottom of A, actually, in terms of that. I might put it at the bottom of A just because I think the blade hand, the machete, I think are a little more unique in terms of, it is just a Glock at the end of the day. Pretty general weapon for, just when you're talking about weapons or even in the apocalypse either. So, all right. Last but not least is Tyrese and his hammer. So this is a pretty big one as well. Obviously, Tyrese in the show from season 3 to season 5. Some people wanted him to be around a little longer, including myself for sure. But this is a pretty iconic one, I would say, right? It's Tyrese and his hammer. Kind of a unique weapon, right? I don't think we really see anybody else with a hammer, throughout the series. And it is a bit of a unique hammer as well. It always had, this kind of slim handle and then a really big, actual hammer at the end of it, where it's not like the typical, kind of basic hammer that you see with that kind of thick, the thick shaft of it, and this kind of big handle. It was always this kind of skinny handle. So, and I did look into it a little bit, and I feel like this is actually more effective with the handle not being as heavy, because you can kind of swing it harder and stronger, kind of have more agility with it while you're using it, when you're swinging it. So it was obviously a smart move, I guess, by Tyrese for that reason. Is it memorable? Yeah, I think he kills a lot of walkers with it. I don't know that he really used it on any humans that I remember. But yeah, I mean, it is pretty unique in terms of the effectiveness. It is a pretty effective thing. The only thing, though, with the skinny handle is that it did feel like, at times, that you might get that, stuck in a walker skull, maybe, or even just a human if you were to swing at it, or maybe he, just swings it so hard that the handle breaks or something. It just seemed like having that slim handle, it just felt kind of fragile, but maybe that's just, my opinion, but the way it looked, right? So anyways, yeah, I don't want to put it, too high, but I think I would put it above the C tier just because Tyrese is a pretty important character, and it was a kind of a unique weapon as well. So, you know what? I think I might put it below Maggie and the bow and arrow. Maybe I might put it at the bottom of B tier here. Yeah, I think it's just above C. I think it's just too memorable for the to put in the C tier. So I think we'll put it at the bottom of B there for now. And let's just review things here at the end. So, I don't know, Rick and the Hatchet, it is pretty iconic, especially for that chunk of seasons there, from like season 5 to 8. Should it be an S tier? I don't know. I really like those three in S tier. I feel like those are like the signature weapons for, basically our three main characters throughout the entire series. Yeah, okay. So I think we'll leave it. I think we'll put it at the top of A, right on the verge of that. I like where all these are. I think maybe, Beta and his knives, the double wielding of the knives. Yeah, you know what? I might put this up. I might put this up at, I think we'll put that at the bottom of B. Shane and the Glock is pretty iconic. Yeah, okay. So we'll put that bottom of A tier. We'll put Beta and his knives there. And the governor, that seems pretty good. And yeah, the slingshot and the double ammo, the infinite ammo rather shotgun. So at the bottom. Okay, so we'll leave it at that for now with our tier list for the character weapons of The Walking Dead. So love to hear your guys' thoughts on my ranking and obviously where you would rank these things or these weapons. And obviously if I missed any, definitely let me know, in the comments and I'll maybe kind of chime in and how I would rank them if I were to put them on this list. So anyways, love to hear from you guys as always, and definitely stay tuned on the channel for more tier lists like this one. Any suggestions are definitely welcome, for future ones. Definitely, looking for ideas for more tier lists as well. So thank you guys so much for watching this one, and we'll see you then in my next video.